Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. The topic for discussion today is the plot structure of Sudraka's play Mrichchhakatika. First, I will clarify the definition of plot given in Bharata Muni's Natya Shastra, and I will make a comparative study of the definition of plot given by Aristotle in the Poetics. While Bharat Muni's Natya Shastra belongs to the classical Indian tradition, Aristotle's Poetics belongs to the classical Greek tradition. In the definition of plot in Bharat Muni's Natya Shastra, emphasis is given to the substance that he calls the Vastu. Plot is the English translation of the word Vastu. But in Indian poetics, the word Vastu includes something more than the plot. It also involves the character, thought, even the diction. The entire structure of a Sanskrit play depends on this Vastu. And this Vastu has some sandhis, the parts. As I discussed in the last class, Mrichchhakatika is a prakaran. And as a prakaran, this has got 5 sandhis, means 5-part structure, allowing the action to move from the beginning through the middle to the end. In the Poetics, Aristotle similarly defined plot as the soul of drama, but he clarified that plot is different from the other 5 elements of a tragedy. The 6 elements that were identified by Aristotle in the Poetics are plot or the mythos, the character or the ethos, the dianoia or the thought, the lexis or the diction, the melody or melos, and finally the spectacle or opsis. Of these 6 elements, Aristotle stated that the plot is the soul of drama, especially tragedy, and it is the primary element of these 6 elements that are arranged by Aristotle in a chronological manner: plot, character, thought, diction, melody, and spectacle. So of these 6 elements, Aristotle regarded the plot to be primary, plot to be the soul of drama, and the character to be secondary. The plot, according to Aristotle, will be structured in such a way that in tragedy, that is also an imitation of an action that is serious, complete in itself, having a certain amount of magnitude, the plot will give a definite structure to the tragedy. It will have a beginning, a middle, and an end. He classified the plot into 2 types: the simple plot and the complex plot. While the simple plot will allow the action without much complication to move from the beginning to the end through the middle, in a complex plot, Aristotle stated that the tragic protagonist will be allowed to move through different stages. First stage is that a tragic plot will begin with this character in a state of relative happiness, but also in a state of ignorance. As a mixed personage, not preeminently virtuous, neither too vicious, this tragic protagonist will commit a hamartia or error, a miscalculation, misjudgment, or error of judgment, and he will be taking a course of action by rejecting other probable courses of action. This good chosen by the tragic hero or heroine will then turn out to be a wrong one, and there will be a reversal of fortune or peripeteia. This reversal of fortune will cause much anxiety, depression, and misery to the protagonist, and to this realization, the protagonist will achieve a kind of recognition or realization of his error. This stage was called by Aristotle as anagnosis or discovery. And finally, after this discovery, there will be a catastrophe, a tragic doom in the life, and the tragic hero or heroine will be either exiled or will accept death. This stage, the final stage, will be also a stage of enlightenment and knowledge, as the tragic hero will pass from relative happiness to absolute misery. He will realize that the good chosen by him or her is just a relative good, not an absolute good. This will lead to an arousal of pity and fear. And this arousal of pity and fear will cause much of suffering in the mind of the spectators. This arousal of pity and fear in the mind of the spectators will finally accomplish, according to Aristotle, the catharsis of such emotion. So this complex plot must have, according to Aristotle, a unity of action. That means the tragic action should not be combined with comic action. There should also be a unity of time, a unity of place, and later on in the revision of Aristotle's Poetics, we find that these unities become very important, even the unity of character, that the character will be like the reality. So we have seen that how the plot in Aristotelian sense is shaped by the action of the character. In case of Bharatamuni's Natya Shastra, the Dasarupakas that are identified have different types of plots or vastu. In a typical prakaran, there is an innovative plot that is poet's own invention. That means the poet has invented his own plot, and this plot will not be legendary, not be epical, will not be based on historical subject or popular known subject. Rather, the entire plot will be a fictional plot set in a setting that can be realistic. So we have in Mrichchhakatika the representation of the society of Ujjaini some 2000 years ago, where we have the story of Charudatta's love for Vasantesena and their final reunion against the backdrop of a similar plot of usurpation by Arakya to dethrone King Palaka. Two plots are interwoven together in Mrichchhakatika that also provides you an excellent study of human characters, study of the topical contemporary reality, a study of the contemporary diction and the thought process. Sanskrit dramaturgy does not talk about a plot that is closely structured to arouse pity and fear in the mind of the spectators. Neither it is a cathartic theater. So tragedies end in this purgation of pity and fear in Aristotelian sense, but in Sanskrit poetics, this is totally absent. So Vastu or the plot of Mrichchhakatika is a sum total of the structure of action, the storyline, the characterization, and the social setting, along with the implied morals that the story provides or preaches. In Vasantasena's love for Charudatta, or rather Charudatta's love for Vasantasena, there is a story, and this story has to be presented in such a way so that the audience is kept never distracted from the real action. Suspense should be generated from the plot. So among the known dramatic compositions of the ancient Indian writers, Mrichchhakatika of Sudraka occupies a very high and distinguished position because of the innovative plot structure. It is a creation of outstanding brilliance. So it should be classed with the productions of acknowledged masters of dramatic art like Bhasa or Kalidasa. So by the virtue of its dramatic or high dramatic charm and its great literary excellence, it has endeared itself to generation of spectators and readers. So we see that the play has been on the stage for nearly more than 2000 years. So this is in itself speaks volume about the work. The play has been adapted in many Indian vernacular languages, and we find that there are so many productions of Mrichchhakatika in such Indian languages that the modern form still continues to draw admiring crowds to witness the performance. This entire play simply traces the, the fortunes of Charudatta and Vasantasena, and the entire interest is retained through an innovative plot structure. So we have an accomplished playwright in Sudraka who is carefully trying to lead us, the spectators, into a story with an innovative plot and drawing our admiration, drawing our breathless interest. So for 2000 years, for a play to succeed on the stage is really a remarkable achievement. And we can simply say that it is because of the plot that the play has successfully been produced since it was first probably produced in Ujjaini. The play possesses several unique features which have enabled it to achieve such unqualified success and to give it an ever widening circle of admirers, of spectators, as well as readers. So, preeminent among these qualities of Mrichchhakatika is its cleverly conceived and successfully constructed plot. So, plot is the soul of Mrichchhakatika. The vastu of Mrichchhakatika is the main essence on which the play is thriving even today. So, the play presents a picture of contemporary society, the society of Ujjaini around 2nd century BC to say 3rd or 4th century AD, and we have the full narration of the activities of Charudatta, Vasantasena, Dhuta, Sakura. The interest is heightened by a variety of stirring episodes that arouse in the mind of the spectators alternating emotions, emotions of joy, emotions of curiosity, wonder, pity, even fear among the spectators. It is because of the plot that such emotions can be generated. So we have such a variety of action. This variety of action is missing in other plays. Even in Abhigyanam Shakuntala of Kalidasa, we do not have such variety of action. So we have in this real world picture of real life. So no other Sanskrit play of that time ever exhibited such a large array of enlivening incidents or thrilling dramatic situations as we find in Mrichchhakatika. The entire plot structure that holds the story together, that presents the story in such a dramatic manner, is really a rare achievement that we find. So we have here the representation of a society that is ingeniously wrought, a story of Mrichchhakatika. We see that the first act, Vasantasena is being pursued in the dark of the night by a group of hooligans. One of them, a royal brother-in-law, Sakura, the brother-in-law of King Palaka. Vasantasena is flying in terror before them. She is like a doe pursued by huntsmen. And finally, she takes shelter in Charudatta's house. In the second act, there is a similar scene where we have the gambler Sambhavaka being pursued by his creditors. So we have on the stage a hand-to-hand fight, almost reminiscent of our contemporary box office super hit movies, where we have intriguing plot. So we have an incident that always appeals to a certain section of the audience. Sudraka aims at being successful and seeks to please a mixed type of house. His appeal through the plot is both to the intellectuals as well as to the unlettered, simple minded folks. So we have in the scene the fight that is not forced upon. Rather, it is quite natural sequence of a quarrel among the characters who are presented in this scene, especially a quarrel over monetary transaction. Even in the third act we have the burglary scene where Sarvilaka is seen stepping in stealthily in the stillness of the night and proceeding scientifically to demonstrate the art of breaking into the house. This fifth act is staged amidst thunder, rain, and lightning, full of suspense. And we have an exhibition of beautiful poetry in the fifth act. The sixth act contains the exciting episodes of the interchange of the carriage and the flight of the pursuit of Arakya. So a situation based on mistaken identity. In the eighth act, we have the strangling of Vasanta Sena. So only a realistic writer of such a caliber like Sudraka could have dared to introduce such disparate sequence of action. And as we find that the play proceeds, the audience is struck dumb with the appealing brutality of the crime of killing Vasanta Sena on the stage. But we soon realize that she is rescued, she is saved, and the horror that has happened on the stage against the directives of Bharata Muni's Natya Shastra that asked to avoid such scenes of murder on the stage. We have an appalling scene of brutality, and yet that scene of brutality is turned into something happy. The ninth act, where we have the famous trial scene of Charudatta, and here we also have some ups and downs, reversals, and finally the tenth act of the play that brings the climax and catastrophe together on the stage, providing a twist to the action and final resolution of the denouement. So the last moment execution of Charudatta is averted by the arrival of Vasanta Sena, giving a twist to the tale. The interest in the play therefore never lags, and every act to act, this interest, suspense gradually increases. There is the humor and variety in the events, even in the earlier acts, and the pathos of the later acts. So we have a virtual tragedy that turns into comedy, a virtual comedy that turns into tragedy. So everything is mixed up, messed up, and then towards a definite conclusion, the play moves, making the play throb with life and action, constituting the chief charm. According to Dr. Ryder, we have from force to tragedy, from satire to pathos, we have a story. So according to Dr. Ryder says, from force to tragedy, from satire to pathos, runs the story with a breadth truly Shakespearean. So this remark of Dr. Ryder is more interesting because of its comparison with Shakespearean plays. And we know that Shakespeare's plays were mainly based on the Roman plays, Italian stories, or the Greek legends. So these stories that are more innovative, especially the romantic plays of Shakespeare, that are based on the plays of classical playwright like Plautus. So this similarity also draws our attention to the works of Plautus, the Roman tragic writer. So Plautus' innovative plot is always remarkable. And we find that there are several areas of similarity between Plautus's comedies or the Roman comedies and Sudraka's Mrichchhakatika. First, the most important point of a Roman comedy is that Roman comedies plot revolves around basic three types. Number one, the hero falls in love with the heroine falls in love with the hero, but there is a problem. The dissenting father, guardians, they do not agree to the marriage, and the lovers, they are forced to elope from their land and run away from the urban world into a rural world, pursued by a comic character who tries to protect the hero and the heroine. In this world of nature, the hero and the heroine consummate their love, and they are, of course, chased by the dissenting guardians or the villains who come to this rural world. But seeing the lovers united together in this rural world, they all agree, and they agree to they give consent to the lovers, agree to their marriage, and request them to return back to their urban world. After this return from the rural world again to the urban world, these lovers are united and the stories end happily thereafter. The second type of plot revolves around a twin situation where we have the separation of the twins at the onset and then a series of comic incidents related to the situation of mistaken identity and confusion related to the presence of identical figures, twins, on the stage. And finally, there is the resolution where we have the happy reunion of the twins. The third type of plot revolves around uh, usually a rich man who is dependent on his servant, and perhaps because of a plague in the state, this man leaves his property estate in the custody of the servant characters. The servant characters take this opportunity and use this disaster of the master into an opportunity to cheat others. So they dupe others, they steal money, they turn their house into a ghost house in order to rob persons. And there is a lot of excitement in the play, lot of action in the play revolving around the trick of the parasite characters. Finally, the master returns and the slaves are caught yet pardoned. So this type of plot and the mixture of all these three types of plot can be seen in Sudraka's Mrichchhakatika. So we have so many stories interwoven together in a single plot of Mrichchhakatika that has a primary plot of Vasantasina's love for Charudatta, Charudatta's love for Vasantasena, and a subsidiary plot of the usurpation of Arakya as a rebel hero who defeats King Palaka and assumes the throne of Ujjaini. The story is further interspersed with many memorable stanzas of great beauty, conveying homely morals or embodying worldly wisdom. So we have Charudatta's remarks on the evils of poverty and Sarvilika's comment on the fickleness of women. So which form of the last of the attractive features of the play. There is also the long description of the rainy season in Act 5. So all these comprise Vastu in traditional classical Greek definition of plot. The diction and the thought, these are not part and parcel of the plot. But in classical Sanskrit definition of Vastu, we have the inclusion of these along with the characters. So we have in Mrichchhakatika a vivid imagery, the rhythmically flowing verses, and the idyllic piece of operatic charm. Sudraka's expression is forcible, graphic, and pithy, both the prose and poetry being remarkable free from unwieldy compounds or involved constructions. So we have clear and vivid impression on our mind about the play. The play can easily foreground important situations and incident and thereby progress through the middle. The beginning is the situation, according to Aristotle, where the play begins without any kind of forewarning, without any kind of narration regarding the past. Only some basic information is provided to the spectators. But this beginning must lead on to the middle, and all the incident situations should be closely tied up together in a causal logic. That means cause and effect relationship. In Sudraka's Mrichchhakatika, like Plotine comedies, like Aristotle's definition of tragedy and the plot, we have interlinking incidents, situations, and all are necessarily tied up together in a sequence of probable and necessary action. Thereby, the beginning leads on to the middle, and the middle leads on to the end. So, plot is like the skeletal structure that holds the story together. And in order to make the story more effective on the stage, the plot is made innovative by Sudraka. So, we have such an excellent representation of the world, the background of Ujjaini society, where all types of characters come together in an innovative plot. Especially the chariot episode, where we have the mistaken identity and is related to the entire play, is worth mentioning. We also have the plot related to the clay cart or the title Mrichchhakatika, where Vasantasena is keeping all her jewelry. Rohasena is crying because does not have a golden chariot like his neighborhood friend. So, as a child, this Rohasena is being offered the jewelry of Vasantasena. When this jewelry is brought again by Maitreya in the trial scene, we find that the jewelry becomes evidence of crime committed supposedly by Charudatta against Vasantasena. And as an evidence, these golden artifacts become the reason for his death sentence. So Charudatta is sentenced to death because of the gold jewelry that was found in the hands of Maitri. Here we also have Sakura's role. Sakura is trying to interweave a plot in order to punish Charudatta, and he even thinks that he has killed Vasantasena and he will be blaming Charudatta for killing Vasantasena. So his plot that is introduced in the play from the beginning till the end holds the story together. So we are also much interested in the generation of suspense. So this dazzling wit, humor, and theatricality is Sudraka's hallmark. So we have an excellent plot structure that is interspersed with so many action, okay, in a rapid sequence, incidents and situation, generating four dominant rasas in the play. So these dominant rasas also comprise the Vastu, the Singar rasa that has a basis of Rati as a bhava. We also have Hasya rasa, where we have wit, humor, language of happiness and situational comedy generating Hasya rasa. We also have Karuna rasa, related to pity and terror and fear that is generated by the spectacle of human cruelty. And then we have also the odious, where the Vibhasa rasa is generated by the representation of human crime, sinful nature of mankind. We also have in this play the transformation of individuals into moral beings. The characters become part and parcel of the plot, and as they move from ignorance to enlightenment, from tamas means darkness, to jyoti, to light, tamsoma jyotirgamaya, we find that these characters are moving to a stage of enlightenment. So from ignorance, the characters move to a stage of enlightenment. They realize the potentiality of their own self. They also lead their life towards a positive, value-based future. Even Sakura is resolved and reconciled. Even his evil is purged out through this action. So we have this elegant grace of Kalidasa's muse in Sudraka, and the dazzling polish and incomparable command over sense and sound. When we have this in the play of course becomes one of the best contrived plot based play of the Sanskrit tradition. With this short introduction to the plot structure, I would like to conclude my discussion. If you have any questions, you can ask so that I can open this class for discussion.